Saber fans, Saber builders, this is Adam here. I want to do a couple part tutorial slash troubleshooting guide on troubleshooting your Saber, and in case you have problems with it and stuff like that. And I want to do a guide because I was seeing a lot of problems on the Facebook and forums and stuff like that, the Saber groups, of people with quite simple issues and stuff like that, but just aren't sure where to check and stuff, and where to start their troubleshooting on how to fix probably simple issues. But if you don't have the know-how to do so, then it becomes quite confusing. And you also have a lot of people make comments on there and stuff like that, and causes confusion as well as to where to start and what to look at. So I wanted to do a couple of videos here and kind of go through just a couple of setups of your Sabers and stuff. And this isn't going to be a build tutorial or anything. It's just going to be a troubleshooting guide. So, for example, if your LED stops working, where do I start to look and, move forward from there. So this first part is just going to work on the Stunt Saber. And then the next part in the probably about 3 videos overall, we'll be working with a simple sound setup and the different variations of that too. So let's get started. So I want to first go over the Saber here. And this is just for, maybe people don't know or just getting into it initially. And a Stunt Saber is basically a saber with no sound. It's very simple setup. There's not too many components to it. It's a very easy build. So the internals of the Saber is really not too much. There's not a whole lot that can go wrong with it. But there are a couple things that you can do to help it, especially with drops and stuff like that, if you like to really play around with your Sabers like I do, with the twirling and stuff like that. So, however, this is an Ultra Saber hilt. They're very simple and basic. And you'll see at the top how this is retention screw. And this will hold, now there's only one retention screw on the Ultra Sabers, which is one of my pet peeves. I do not like with the Saber Forge hilts, and pretty much are the 2 hilts I'm going to be talking about, since they're the 2 biggest companies. They have, on the Saber Forge, they have another retention screw, and that'll hold the LED in place. So, unfortunately, with the Ultra Sabers, you'll have the LED, which is this right here. You'll have this housing, which is a 1-inch housing, kind of just floats in the Saber here. So, you'll have it's basically pressed against the blade, and then between the switch here. So, it floats a little bit. It does have some movement, which can cause problems and stuff like that when you have drops. Pretty much so you'll have the LED that kind of sits here in the neck on this one. Obviously each Saber is a little different. You have your switch right below it. You'll have some wiring, a resistor or 2 in here depending on your LEDs, and then your battery pack will basically sit down here at the bottom. Very simple setup, not too much to it. So, say we're having a problem, and the most common issue with a Stunt Saber is probably your LED is not working, or you're just not getting any illumination from it. So the first thing I would check would be the battery pack. And so let's move this out of the way for a second. So you'll see this is basically the entire setup of a Stunt Saber. You have your LED, which is right here. You'll have a resistor in between. Usually right between the switch or the battery pack, and then you'll have your switch, and then you'll have your battery pack. So that's pretty much everything with a couple wires in there. Is the entire setup for a Stunt Saber, and some batteries as well. So you're not getting the illuminated your light to illuminate. So the first thing I would check, obviously, check your batteries. Make sure they're charged. If you're using a rechargeable, this is just a 4 AAA battery pack, which is pretty common in them. You might see double A's or whatever. Switch those out. make sure it's your batteries first. That's the simplest fix. Check those, and if you change them out and they're all good, then there you go, you have it fixed. You can also check these little springs to make sure they're all connected as well. It's a quick check for you. Check these little joints on the back side. That's where the wires run in and connect to the battery housing. If you have a 18650 battery set up, this is one of the housings for it that you might see. I believe this one's off the Custom Saber shop. And one of the common issues I see all the time, and it's happened to me a couple times, and I've even said it on a couple of the forums, is with these, you'll see at this side right here where it pushes out on the battery, that will tend to get pushed in. So this will get pushed into the backside, which makes a bad contact with the battery. So the simple fix is to grab something, pull the battery out, obviously, and push this little metal clip out that direction, so to make more contact with the battery. And then another way to secure it in there, so when it's, you're twirling it around, is either wrap a little bit of electrical tape around it, some Velcro, which I prefer, so it's easy on and off, and that at least keep the battery all nice and tight in there. But that's a pretty simple fix, and that's actually pretty common. That happens more than you know. So that's the battery housing. You might have something like this. This is another 18650 battery. However, this is more, you might see this more in a recharge, with a built-in with a recharge port. So if you have that in your Stunt Saber, you might see something like this. So basically the only thing you can check on this without pulling it off and using a voltage meter, if you don't have that, which most people don't, is to check the solder joint. So you might have it connected in with a plug like this, or it just might be, this could be snipped off this plug, and then it just might be a solder joint with, another black and red, wire attached to it. So you can check that, give a little pull on it, make sure it's okay. So that would be the first step I would do. The second step would be to check the LED. So this is going to be right in the inside. So if I bring the Saber back over here, all you're going to do is loosen this retention screw here, pull out the blade stock, and then the LED is basically just going to sit in the inside. And if you can see it there a little bit, you can kind of see it down there. So you're going to, if you have a second retention screw, you're going to loosen that. And most of the time, unless you had it done by a Saber builder or something like that, they'll have some extra wiring here, so you can actually just dump the Saber down here a bit, and you'll be able to at least get enough of the LED housing to slide out, out of the front here, that you'll be able to take off the back side. So let's move this back out of the way again. So all this is an aluminum housing with a copper back. So you're just going to unscrew this, and they're pretty much all set up. They might look a little different color and stuff like that, but this is from the Custom Saber shop, and this is pretty much all I use. It's just a 1-inch housing for the LED. So you're just going to unscrew that. This aluminum's going to pop off on the front. You'll have your lens for the LED on there, and then you'll have your LED. So this is a tri-crease setup, so you'll see all the, you'll see a positive and a negative. So if you look at the bottom one right here, you'll have the positives on the left side, the negatives on the right side. So that is the positive and the negative for this LED. And then that follows suit all the way around. So you'll see the wiring and the joints on the LED here. So you'll have it soldered. So the quick check is just to check those solder joints to make sure the wires are tight on there. Give them a little pull to make sure it doesn't pop off. And if they are, then at least you know that the solder joints are okay. So the next step would be, and let me actually just show this is a single LED. So just so you see what that looks like. So you'll have less wires on it. You'll have less joints up there. You'll have positive on one side, negative on the other, and so just so you see what that looks like, so you know what you're looking at. So the next possibility might be, say your Saber is very dim and not as bright as it used to be. It could be that one of these LEDs have blown. If it's a single, then it won't illuminate anymore. But if one of these LEDs have blown, then you'll be able to to figure that out pretty easily. You can use a pretty simple setup. You can find these at an electronics store or online. These are just two alligator clips. One's positive, which is most of the time the red. Negative is the black. This is just two AAA batteries. And then all you're going to do is attach the positive. You can just touch the ends of the alligator clips on either side of the LEDs. You would touch the positive on the plus, the black on the negative, and then if it illuminates, you'll know that that LED works. And you're not going to damage it. You're not going to do anything to it. It's just for a second. You just check to make sure it illuminates, and then you do that on each one of the LEDs. If they all illuminate, then that's not a problem then for you. They're all good. So the next step would be moving down the hilt. You're going to, if you can see it, you can check the resistor. Now this is just one type of resistor. There's several different sizes and types and stuff like that. This is just an example. But sometimes this would be heat shrink around this. It'd be bigger heat shrink than this, but this is just heat shrink, so you see what it looks like. It comes in multiple colors and stuff. But you might see that around it. You might see electrical tape. It just depends on who built it and how they build it. I usually use heat shrink on mine. It shows a better quality of build, and it gives you better joints too. So on the left and the right side of the resistor here, and check those to make sure they're okay. And if they are, another thing, if you have, and you can see the wire, you can see if there's any kinks or stuff like that in the wire. Most of the time, if it's not spun together, the different wires, you'll get a lot of extra wire in there too. So you might get kinks and breaks in the wire. So, when it gets colder out and stuff like that, you'll get, kinks in the wire, and it could actually snap it. So if you see like a sharp kink in there where it's, very compressed, that could be a break in the wire too. And you should be be able to feel that a bit if you feel a break in there. So that'd be something else you could check. And then the next thing would be the switch. Now this is a latching switch, non-illuminated, and pretty much this is what's going to be in Stunt Sabers, is a latching switch. And basically all that is that when you press down on the button, it's going to bring the contacts together, and then it's going to complete that circuit. If this isn't latching, you're not hitting the click, that's another sign that your switch may be broken. Usually with sound, Sabers with sound, you'll see momentary switches, which is like this one. So it's a press, and then pretty much the soundboard is going to handle the turning the on and the off of the Saber. It's not you're just creating that circuit for a second, where the switch kind of regulates that circuit for you. So anyway, so you'll see on the bottom of the switch here, it's two prongs that are coming out, and so you're going to check the joints on that. So the problem with the switches are, which you might have ran into before, is that they'll have sometimes they're a pain to try to get out. If they have this nut on the back of it, which if this is sitting in the hilt, you'll have the nut screwed up to the base of the hilt, and that way it's secured in there. It can be a pain to really try to get off, and you kind of wiggle it down over the wires here at the bottom. If not, a higher percentage is that it's glued in, so it might be glued around the base here and into the hilt. That can become a pain to get out. You might need to heat up your hilt a bit to be able to pop it out. Most of the time, I don't use, if I can use the nut on here, I can. If I can't reach it, when I'm putting it all together, especially with the solid hilts where it's all one piece and not 3 sections, I usually use a little bit of tape, and then I just kind of press fit it in. That works very well for me. I've never had a switch once fall out in any of my sabers. You can't see the tape at all, and it's an extremely easy fix, because all you got to do is just a little bit of pressure, it pops right out, and then you can get to your switch to fix it. If it's glued in there, I don't have to worry about messing my hilt up with really trying to pop it out and potentially scratching it and stuff like that. So that's just a recommendation I do. I don't like to glue switches in whatsoever. If you see a switch with 4 prongs on there, this is most likely an illuminated switch. However, I have seen sabers where they'll use a latching switch. They just won't hook up the LED portions of the switch, but just the connections to the battery. So if you see 4 prongs, you just want to check those prongs and make sure they're not bent or broken or anything like that, and that the joints are okay. So moving down, pretty much you're going to just get to some more wiring, and you got to check those kinks again, and then you'll be to your battery or your battery packs. So that's pretty much the whole entire setup of a Stunt Saber. There's really not too much more to it. If all those things are looking good and you can't figure it out, then it might be better to send it in to somebody to try to figure it out for you. If probably about, I would say 99% of the time, you can figure it out if you're able to check all those things I just talked about. And if you don't have soldering skills and you don't have that ability to do a solder job, especially on the LEDs, then, if you can find somebody or, reach out to a group or something like that, then, it might be an easy fix for you that way if you don't feel comfortable. But it really isn't too difficult to do it. You just have to take a little time and patience. There's plenty of videos out there and stuff like that. I've even showed it in a couple of my other videos too. I think that's about it. So come back again for another tutorial or a troubleshooting guide, where we'll go more into detail on working with sabers with sound. And that can become a little more hectic to try to figure out, just because there's more involved, more wiring. You start to get into more chassis and stuff like that, so it can become a pain on trying to figure out. But the majority of the time, it's just a joint that has popped off. So what are a couple things that I can do to help the electronics on the inside from getting broken? Well, there's a couple of things. So we can, and this one's a little more complicated, is tapping another retention screw here. And so at least that will secure the LED within the hilt. And there's a couple of hilts out there that only have 1 retention screw. Not too many, but there are a couple. Ultra Sabers being the major one. And that's not too difficult, but will cost you a couple extra dollars. And you'll need a tap set for that you can purchase online or in Home Depot or Lowe's stores, hardware stores. And that will just take drilling a hole here, and it's going to be the same size as this, and then you're going to tap the hole, and then you'll have a second retention screw for that, and then that at least prevent the LED from clashing around the inside and keep it in one spot. Another thing we can do is we don't want any rattling on the inside. There's no rattling on this because it's nice and secure inside. And there's a couple things you can use. Nothing expensive, things you can find at your local stores. I like to use craft foam because it's cheap. It's fairly thin. You can wrap it up a couple times on the inside. And that's a way to just kind of push all your electronics in the inside. And, you can kind of butt it up against the switch a little bit more and fill up some of the empty space so you don't have any rattle. If you have rattle in there, that's no good. That's just going to cause your electronics to bang around more, and the possibility of shorts or breaking a wire on the inside. So you can fill that hole up with, this, for example, or, any kind of foam or something like that. This is T8 tubing. This just goes around fluorescent lights, and this can be found in your hardware stores as well. That can be cut and put around your electronics, give you a little extra protection as well. Against shock, you can use the both of them. And then another thing you can try doing is placing some Velcro around the battery pack. This can also be found at the hardware store online, and that'll give your batteries to keep them in place so they don't bounce around and jiggle and fall out and possibly cause a short. You can use electrical tape. I prefer this this Velcro instead. It gives a little more cushion, and it's easier to pull on and off, and it's reusable. So that's there's not too much you can do. I mean, you can rewire the entire thing if that's, and put a chassis in there, but that takes a lot more work, and it's kind of, I think it's kind of pointless to do. But so just a few tips to help you out and protect your Saber from getting broken. So I hope you enjoy the tutorial, troubleshooting tips and stuff like that. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments as always, and I'll try to answer them for you if you need any help. So take care, God bless, and I'll see you in another tutorial.